Okay, so I'm finally gonna hopefully do this tier ranking for the first half of the year. And in preparation and making sure that I had the tier ranks correct, I realized in the last tier ranking video I was wearing this same exact shirt. So I guess this is my unofficial uniform for tier ranking. So yeah, let's get to it, I suppose. I already have this set up. Hopefully it didn't mess up. So, plot twist. This is a video that I had filmed back in August of 2025 that I forgot to edit, and subsequently, you're getting it now. So, I did mess up by not editing. Additionally, you will see that I have a complete and utter meltdown over the fact that the tier ranking software has a bit of a fit in regards to the ordering of the images. So, spoiler alert, these are not necessarily in order of when I read them, because I have a terrible memory apparently. Let's do this. It is in order of when I read them that I'm going to go through them. The last book that I read in 2024 was A Wizard of Earthsea, and I absolutely adored it. To no one's, or should be no one's surprise. So, Tombs of Atuin. The question is do I want to limit the new part of my personality to one book per author / series? I think what I'll do, I'll switch it up a little bit. I will keep one book per series in the new part of my personality, but an author can show up multiple times if I read either more than a series from them or more than one book by them. So, with that said, Tombs of Atuin, spoiler alert, is not my favorite Earthsea book. But to be fair, all of them, every single Earthsea book is wonderful and amazing and thought-provoking and compelling and beautiful. And I think everyone should read Earthsea. They are for everyone, and Ursula K. Le Guin can do no wrong at this point in my literary life. So, yeah, Tombs of Atuin, definitely going to be a new favorite. If I can move my mouse up, that'd be great. And then Farthest Shore, as the third book in the Earthsea series, is also going to be a new favorite. Maybe a hot take. I actually like it a little bit more than Tombs of Atuin. Again, to be fair, all of these are wonderful, amazing 5-star reads. Okay, so yeah. Next one that I read was the book that I vaguely remember seeing the Last Unicorn animated film when I was a kid. It's something that never particularly had a nostalgic hold on me. So the Last Unicorn was picked for Alan's book club, Alan's Discord book club that Alan does not participate in, by the way. It's just something we went rogue with and decided to start on our own. And I absolutely and utterly fell in love with The Last Unicorn. I fell in love with the story. I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with Peter S. Beagle's storytelling style. I fell in love with his prose. I, unfortunately, regrettably, still have not read anything more by Peter S. Beagle, and it is a shame, and I am ashamed of myself. With that said, Last Unicorn is definitely a new part of my personality. I literally got a tattoo for this book after reading it. That's how much I love this book. And it is so melancholy and beautiful and whimsical, and it's so good. It's just so good. It's so good. And then I rewatched the film. It was actually really good. I really liked the film. I can see why people are nostalgic about it. It's a wonderful film. Of course, I prefer the books. So, Tehanu is what number is that? 4th book of the Earthsea series. And Ursula K. Le Guin wrote this quite a number of years, almost 20 years after she published The Farthest Shore. And it is a book that exponentially grew in the time between those books that she was writing, but also I think with the reader. It is definitely not a young adult book. If it is the darkest book that young adult book I've ever read. It is one of the darkest books I've ever read. It was really, really hard for me to read. I don't want to say in a good way, because there are some really, really, really horrible things that happen in this book. The way that Ursula K. Le Guin writes it, I don't want to say makes it easier, but it really makes you focus and reflect on what's happening. And it's about Tehanu. It's about, I don't think it's really a spoiler, but like it's about similar characters in Tombs of Atuin. And that's actually one thing I forgot to mention. Where The Wizard of Earthsea is about Ged and it focuses on Ged, the rest of the books in the series, spoiler alert, don't focus on Ged. He is a character in the series, in each book, but the focus is on a different character. In The Tombs of Atuin, it's on a young woman. She's approximately in her teens. I think she's like 15, 16. And her name is Tanar. And it is following her as she is growing up in this society where she is seen as this priestess princess person. And she's really trapped and contained within her role. In The Furthest Shore, the character focus is on Aaron. And he is a prince who is trying to, he goes on a journey with Ged to the titular Farthest Shore, and it is an exploration and a fable on grief and death. And that The Farthest Shore was my favorite of the bunch, easily, when I read it. And then I read Tehanu, and I told myself that I loved The Farthest Shore more, even after I had read Tehanu. But the more time I've been away from Tehanu, the more that I can't stop thinking about that book. I think it is one of the most perfect books ever written, even in its darkness. But Tehanu actually comes back to Tanar, and she's an older woman now. She's in her 40s, and you see her growth in that time between the Tombs of Atuin, when you last saw her, and in Tehanu. And it is just dark and gorgeous and beautiful. And oddly enough, still not going to break that new part of my personality, but it's definitely at the top of at the front of the line for the new favorite of the Earthsea books. Next book I read was unfortunately a complete and utter dud. And it is the third book in the Fincer trilogy by K.J. Parker. And oh my god, this book. I really enjoyed Colors in the Steel, which was the first book of the trilogy. And I really loved Belly of the Bow, which was the second book. The third book, I don't know what happened. I will just leave a link down below. Actually, no, we never even did a chat about this. Holy crap. I don't think we ever will. But this was a trilogy that we were reading as part of Alan's series read-along. And I'm pretty sure we're never going to do a chat about The Proof House, because it was just way too long, way too meandering. And even for Parker, like, that's saying a lot. It's just, it was not a fun experience. And it hurts me. It really does, but it has to go into the abomination tier. It's that not good. So, but I still will read more KJ Parker, dadgummit. The next book I read was I came back from the Proof House and I read another Ursula K. Le Guin. Spoiler alert, this has been the year of Ursula K. Le Guin, and I have no complaints about that. I read The Dispossessed. I know it is a very relatively divisive book in that Alan hates it and everyone else seems to love it. I see its value. I think it's one of the most intellectually stimulating books that I have read. I know that they say that sci-fi is a genre all about ideas, but the way that Ursula K. Le Guin explored everything, the capital A, capital S, about something, as Alan calls it, in The Dispossessed, was just so... it was just so good. And I really, really loved it. Shevik was a incredibly compelling character. And yeah, that's all I can say about that. I am also very glad I'm glad... am I glad I read it, or is it a new favorite? Like, it toes the line for me. I'm going to keep it on glad I read it. I might change it to new favorite at the very end. And then I read Wounded by Percival Everett. So this is my first Percival Everett, and I read this with Carlos from StoryTube. And it is about a black horse trainer in Wyoming. Yes, Wyoming. And sneaky Carlos got me to read a crime book, and I freaking loved it. The way that Percival Everett writes in general is so compelling. It is a pretty short little novel, but it packs an incredible punch. It is about the horse trainer and a murder of a gay man in this small town, and how prejudices and bigotry starts bubbling up in this town that was kind of stayed dormant and hidden for the longest time until this act of violence occurred. And the way that Everett uses horses throughout, you can tell that he has worked with horses, not just in passing, but he knows horses, and he uses horse training and working with horses thematically with other characters as well. And it's just really such an effective book. And I loved it, and it is definitely a part of my personality because I'm a horse girl. I can't help it. The next book that I read was Dungeon Crawler Curl by Matt Dinneman. This was an incredible surprise for me. I obviously... a crap ton of people talk about Dungeon Crawler Curl and gush about it, and I went into it anticipating to just be fine with it, but I was surprised with how emotionally connected I was to Carl specifically. Everyone talks about Donut as like, oh my gosh, Donut is the best character, and Donut is a great character, but I felt so connected to Carl. And this is, you know, the apocalypse is televised. I feel like I don't really need to talk about this book because I feel like everybody else talks about it enough that it makes, you know, people know about this book. So yeah, Dungeon Crawler Curl, it is not my... When I initially read Dungeon Crawler Curl, I was on a high. Spoiler alert, I have since fallen off that high. Not to say that I don't like the series. Like, trust me, I still like the series. I'm actually going to say that I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I read it more than The Dispossessed, though. Because, again, this is pretty much on the edge there. You know what? Screw it. I'll just put it as new favorite. I went back to KJ Parker. I read a standalone from him. I finally read The Company. And I think had The Company been one of my first KJ Parker books or standalones, I would have liked it more. He does have a style and a cadence and just a rhythm to his storytelling, and the beats that he beats. They're just story beats that are very familiar to KJ Parker that he uses in pretty much all of his works. And I was fine with this book. I for the majority of it, I thought it was going to be like some dark Shakespearean tragedy, and then the KJ Parker thing happened, and I was left scratching my head a little bit. Yeah, so I am still glad I read it, though. So, yeah. All right, and then I read The Dying of the Light by George R.R. Martin with Kyle and Pete, and I feel like there was someone else we talked about it with, but I will leave a link down below to the discussion that Kyle hosted for this book. He's hosting a read-along of Gurm's A Song of Ice and Fire books, and I was supposed to read Windhaven, whoopsie daisy, and I didn't. Sorry, Kyle. But when I initially finished Dying of the Light, I was actually pretty ambivalent about it. I was borderline frustrated with it as well. But the more time that I've come away from it, and especially after discussing it with Kyle and Pete, the more actually I appreciate it and what Gurm was doing. If I recall correctly, this was his first published novel. He had published stories before this. And you can see just the craftsmanship that Gurm is obviously known for. Just the way that everyone talks about his writing. Like, you can see that craftsmanship even in Dying of the Light. And I would say it's borderline romantic in a capital R sense of the word. And it's a sci-fi. It's about a man who goes to a planet to try and reunite with his old flame, and things happen, and there's actually a lot that happens. And I think it was really, for what it was, especially being written in the 70s or late 60s, either way, I very much appreciate it. So I would say I am glad I read it. And I would put it... Do I put it above The Company? Alan, don't kill me, but I'm actually going to put it above The Company. Because I remember more about Dying of the Light than I do The Company, to be honest. And then I got back to Ursula K. Le Guin again, and I read oh gosh, I already lost count. 2, 3, 4, 5th book in the Earthsea series. And this is actually a collection of short stories in the series, and it's Tales from Earthsea. And I'm a sucker for stories. I can't help it. And I just adored every single story in Tales from Earthsea. And it was just so good. It was so good. It spanned from, hundreds of years before you meet even Ged in A Wizard of Earthsea to the current timeline at that point. Events right after Tehanu. And it's just so good. I love it so much. So it's definitely going to be, it's my favorite Earthsea book. It's going to go new part of my personality. I would definitely say definitely above Wounded. Yeah, I'm going to put it there just so I don't anger Sal. But also I think that's pretty... I think Last Unicorn and just Earthsea as a whole, and then individually Tales from Earthsea, they're like neck and neck with The Last Unicorn. It's fighting for dominance. And then I got back to Discworld, to the City Watch, and I read The Fifth Elephant. And I loved this book. I loved The Fifth Elephant. It is the book about really focusing on Angua. And Sybil is such a badass. and I love her so much. And I think it's my favorite City Watch book. Actually, there is no I think. It is my favorite City Watch book. With that said, it's still just a new favorite. Nation is still my favorite Terry Pratchett work to date. Like, I think about Nation on a daily basis, and I'm not joking. Hopefully we can get a Discworld book that will crack that, crack into the new part of my personality tier soon. Next book I read was, oh god, what does that say? I think it was Signs Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera. So this is a short novel translated from the Spanish. I buddy read this with Matt, and I loved it. Like, it's such, like, Yuri Herrera is such a talented writer. Lisa Dillman as a translator, so effective in her translation. And I can't really say much more than that. As the title implies, there's a semi-apocalyptic setting going on, but it's set in Mexico, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's set in Mexico. And yeah, I am very much glad I read it. I would actually put it, I'd put it here. Yeah. All right. And then got back yet again to Ursula K. Le Guin. And this time I read The Word for World is Forest. And I don't think I can say anything about this book that Quinn's Ideas has already said, because he just recently put out a video about The Word for World is Forest, although it is spoiler-filled. I will leave a link down to it below. The Word for World is Forest is my favorite Le Guin book to date. Like, single favorite Le Guin book. It is such an angry book. A righteously, justifiably angry book. And there's a perspective in here. It's actually the first perspective you meet. His name is Davidson. And he is sickeningly, whatever. He is awful. He's awful. He's disgusting. It's makes my skin crawl just thinking about this character. He is uber masculine in all the worst ways. He wants to control everyone. He thinks everyone is beneath him, including the native population that's on this planet, the Athshei. And I was messaging Kim, shout out Kim, as the Le Guin expert here. I was messaging her and I'm like, I don't know if I can get through this book just after the first chapter. I'm like, I have to take a break. I have to take a break just from reading this perspective. And I'm like, if this is all this guy's perspective, I cannot read this book. And she assured me that there are other perspectives, and she appreciated my frustration and my concern and my just reaction to this character, and she supported me in my visceral reaction to this character. And I'm very glad that I pushed through my horror, discomfort, and disgust of Davidson, because what Le Guin is saying in The Word for World is Forest is so incredibly important and so incredibly relevant. I think it's her best work that I've read to date. Like, no questions asked. I love it so much. And I'm sorry, Sal, but this is another book that I think about on a daily basis. And I think I like it more than The Last Unicorn, which is saying a lot. Again, I got a freaking tattoo for The Last Unicorn, okay? I think everyone should read The Word for World is Forest. I love that book. And then I read Annihilation, which, by the way, that's another thing. On one hand, the year of Earthsea and Le Guin. On the other hand, also the year of sci-fi. Who would have known? And spoiler alert, also a year for romance for me. And who am I? Who am I? I don't know who I am anymore, and I'm okay with that. Anyways, I read Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I had seen the film, which apparently I guess is a terrible adaptation, but I love the film, and when I finally read the book, I see why people are very frustrated by the film adaptation. I still like the film. The book is obviously better. I loved just the craft of it and the project of it, with the unnamed biologist telling her story through the Southern Reach into Area X. And yeah, I loved it. I tried reading the second book not long after, and it was a different perspective, literally and figuratively, and I couldn't click with it because I wanted more of what Vandermeer was doing in Annihilation. With that said, I do intend to finish the series. At least that is my hope. I will put this up. I guess, like, just logically, I'll have to put it at the end of new favorite, even though I actually like it more than Dungeon Crawler Carl, and even actually, even though I haven't continued the series, and I've continued other series and finished other series on this tier, I'm actually going to put Annihilation second to Tehanu, because I really like it that much. Suck it, whatever. And then I read Emily Henry's new book, Great Big Beautiful Life. I read this with Yolanda and Laura for our Emily Henry book club, and I'll leave a link down below to the chat that we did. And I really, really like this book. I think so. For me, you can really tell that Emily Henry is stretching herself in her style. Like, this is definitely less romance genre and more literary in a little bit of ways, but there's still like romance elements to it, of course. I know that the critique is like that this is like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but not nearly as good. I've never read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I have no say in that regard, so I can just only judge it based on what I read, and I really, 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 really liked it. It is like a hair away from overtaking Happy Place for me, just because I liked it that much. With that said, I will put it up as a new favorite. All right, and then I reread This Is How You Lose the Time War. I feel like, who was I buddy reading this with? I was buddy reading this, I think, with Sal, I think with Anitha, other people. I can't remember. I'm so sorry, guys. But I actually wound up listening to this on audio. I'm not usually an audiobook only reader, story experiencer, what have you. And I was just so taken by the audiobook narration. And I was even more enveloped by the audiobook. I loved This Is How You Lose the Time War when I initially read it, eyeballs only. And I loved it somehow even more on reread, which is great. All right, and then I read another Yuri Herrera with Matt. I think this one is, if I look at that right, that's The Transmigration of Bodies. And yeah, he really focuses on and is exploring the migrant experience. And it is another one where I'm very glad I read it. Do I like it more than Signs Preceding the End of the World? I actually think I like it a little bit more than Signs Preceding the End of the World. Yeah, that's right. And then I read The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. I do not recall the translator for this work, but I had read The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa and really, really enjoyed it. Probably I think I read it like 4 years ago. It was maybe the year of COVID or maybe the year after. And I'd been meaning to read more from Yoko Ogawa. And this was the perfect opportunity. It's very short. It is a love letter to math. And it also deals with dementia, which, if you know anything about me, is one of my deepest fears and really terrors, is just memory, the loss of memory, the fallibility of memory. And this was oddly, I don't want to say triggering, but it hit the wrong nerves in the best way. I don't know if that makes sense. I loved this book. I think it actually made my fears a little bit, it didn't lessen my fears, but it made my fear related to memory and loss of memory and fallibility of memory just feel a little bit bittersweet with reading this novel. And I think it's just so wonderful. I'm not a math person. Like, I barely passed my math classes in high school and college. Actually, did I? I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a math person. I'm not a numbers person. But the way that Yoko Ogawa is explored math, it actually made me excited to learn about math through this character and through these characters. And it's just so sweet. And I'm very, very glad I read it. I actually would say that I am. I don't think it's a new favorite, but I'm more glad I read it than The Dispossessed, which is maybe a hot take. Don't kill me, Kim. I'm so sorry. All right, and then the next book I read was the second Dungeon Crawler Curl book, Curl's Doomsday Scenario, and I thought it was great. Like, I was continuing to ride that high, as it were, the DCC high, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't like it as much as the first book, but I think it was a great continuation of Carl and Donut as characters and in the world. And yeah, I would say yeah, I would put it after Dying of the Light in the glad I read it tier. I'm debating now. Dadgummit. Screw it. Whatever. We'll keep it there. Okay. Then I reread Funny Story by Emily Henry. I read this with John, and it was a glorious reread. I'm not going to be ranking within the reread tier because it's a reread. So, yeah. And I loved reading Funny Story. I loved rereading it, and especially reading it with John, who had never read it before. So, yeah. It was great. I love Daphne, and I love Miles, and they were great. All right, and then I read the third Dungeon Crawler Curl book, the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. And this might be a hot take, but this is my favorite book of the Dungeon Crawler Curl series. That's really freaking hard to say, especially when you have a speech impediment. Yeah, so it's my favorite. Like, it's a new part of my personality. I love Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. I love the trains. I actually cried during this book, so I guess that's got to say something. But yeah. Okay, and then the next book that I read was The River Has Roots by Amal El-Matar. This is Amal El-Matar's first novel/novella written by herself. And basically, if you loved This Is How You Lose the Time War, you're gonna love The River Has Roots. If you hated This Is How You Lose the Time War, you're not gonna like The River Has Roots, because The River Has Roots is basically This Is How You Lose the Time War on just dialed up but to 11. It is so incredibly stylized. It is so incredibly lyrical in its language, and it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. The project of the book, the execution, the way that Amal El-Matar wrote it, I loved it. And I will read anything and everything Amal El-Matar writes. And it is definitely a new favorite. Do I like it more than Dungeon Crawler Carl, though? I would actually say... All right, I put it there. Put it above Dungeon Crawler Carl in the new favorite tier. Okay. The next book that I read after that was, I wanted to try another romance, widen my romance horizons from Emily Henry, and I tried The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, and this was fine for a romance, I suppose. I wound up listening to it on audio. It is mostly, if not all, written through like letters between these two people that are sharing their flat. One person works at night, one person works during the day, and it was fine, but if I'm being honest, it just didn't work for me. It was everything that I expect from a romance, in that it's just very generic to the point of not being compelling, if that makes sense. And then I read Stephen Graham Jones's now new novel, The Buffalo Hunter. Saga Press was so kind to send me a physical arc of The Buffalo Hunter to read early. And The Buffalo Hunter, there you go, is a vampire story. If you didn't know that, you know that now. It is a vampire novel. And it is, I'm not joking, and I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm not being dramatic. The Buffalo Hunter is a book, and Goodstab as a character is going to be in the same conversations as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, both as a book and as a character, and the creature as a character, and Dracula as a book and as a character. It's going to be in those same conversations. And if it's not, I'm going to be pissed, because this is it's a masterpiece. That's all it is. That's all I have to say. It is a masterpiece. And I had to face it that Mongrels is no longer my favorite Stephen Graham Jones book. It is now, I'm a vampire girly. I can't help it. Where do I want to put it, though? It is also one that I keep thinking about. I can't stop thinking about this book. Just the craftsmanship of it. Like, it is a nested narrative told in letters and journal entries and oral storytelling of a woman finding her great-great-grandfather's journals, and in those journals he is writing about an interview and a confession that Goodstab, a Blackfeet Native American man, gives to him. And it's just it is so good. And the way that Stephen Graham, oh God, okay, hold on, let me take a step back. Stephen Graham Jones, if you've read anything by Stephen Graham Jones, you know he has a very distinct authorial writing style. With The Buffalo Hunter, in a similar way, actually, to Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, you can tell that both of these authors are purposefully and intentionally stretching their creative muscles. And Stephen Graham Jones, writing in a late 19th century, early 20th century style through the Lutheran pastor's journal entries, as he is writing down Goodstab's confession is just so freaking good. And I actually want to reread it now that I'm talking about it. It's just so good. It is so good. So good. I need everyone to read it. Anyways, okay. Before I just spend the next 40 minutes talking about just the Buffalo Hunter, let us move on. Ogres. I finally read Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and to be honest, had I not heard from so many people about how amazing Ogres is, how awesome, how inventive, how creative, how just amazing Ogres was, I think I would have had a better time. I think the hype meter was made a little bit too high for it, and I thought it was a very well crafted and executed story. I really appreciate it. It's Adrian Tchaikovsky. I love Adrian Tchaikovsky, and he is wonderful. With that said, I will put it at the top of I'll actually put it here, and I'm actually going to move The Housekeeper and the Professor down. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Move Housekeeper and the Professor down. So it's Dispossessed, Housekeeper and the Professor, Ogres, Stone of the Light, etc. in the Glad I Read It tier. Okay. That looks right. That looks about right. Okay. God's Country by Percival Everett. Another, obviously, Percival Everett novel, and another Western, which Wounded is a crime, but also Western. And God's Country is a decidedly and distinctly and purposely Western genre novel. It is also a satire. And I've never laughed so much in a book. Like, it's not a humorous book. It's not supposed to be like Terry Pratchett style of humor, satire. It is just the way that Percival Everett calls out everyone's bigotry through humor and through the humor in the scenes is a masterclass in writing, in character work, in humor. It's just so good. And it is I can't believe that I read Wounded and God's Country, and they're both by the same person. Like, it's just not that they're so different from one another. It's just the tone is so different, but the craftsmanship still feels distinctly Percival Everett. Mind you, these are the only two Percival Everetts I've read so far, so take it with a grain of salt. But with that said, God's Country is amazing. I think it is so good. I still think Wounded lives more rent-free in my brain. So I will actually put God's Country. I'll actually put it up between Tehanu and A Great Big Beautiful Life in the new favorite tier, because I do think about God's Country a lot. Like, a lot. And I'm just realizing how, yeah. No, whatever. Okay, we'll move things around if need be. Anyways, I was determined to read more romance, try and expand my horizons. I was told, hey, I should try Abby Jimenez. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll try her latest book that just came out. Say You'll Remember Me. That was the wrong choice, because it was trash. It was horrible. It was awful. But somehow she was able to write it and still keep me reading till the end without DNFing. So actually, I will put it above Proof House for that regard. I didn't DNF Proof House, but I don't remember a damn thing about what happened in Proof House toward the end, because I just zoned out as I was reading. At least I remember what happened in Say You'll Remember Me. I finished the Yiddish folktales. I'm reading this with Urza. Pretty much Urza. I think Urza and I are the only ones reading these folktales anymore. So we had read, Kim and I had read the Russian fairy tales, and then we decided that we were going to do Yiddish folk tales. So I don't think Kim ever finished Yiddish folk tales. I don't know. But anyways, Urza hopped on that train with us, and we read Yiddish folk tales. It took us a few months, and they were fine. Like, I think actually reading the Russian fairy tales previously, just prior, actually really helped with my enjoyment of these tales, because you can see the Eastern European and Germanic, well, at least the Eastern European influences of those folk tales and folk figures, which makes me interested to read like more Germanic folk tales and myths and legends, to see, you know, Yiddish folk tales are in that area of, you know, more Slavic, you know, Russian influences, as well as Germanic, and I just want to see like the Germanic side, what Yiddish folktales pulls from that and is influenced by that. So with that said, I thought they were fine. None of them really stood out to me. Even though I'm glad I read them, I will just say that I'm ambivalent about them. They were fine. Yeah. All right, and then I read Helen of Troy by Bettany Hughes with Sal, a nonfiction exploration of the mythic Helen of Troy from the Iliad and, well, the Odyssey, and the Trojan War. And Bettany Hughes is looking at Helen of Troy from a variety of angles, from a mythic perspective, from a sociological perspective, from an anthropological perspective, just all these viewpoints and perspectives of what Helen could have and would have been, assuming that she is a real woman, or if she wasn't even a real woman. And I thought it was just so good. It's obviously nonfiction, so it's going to go in the nonfiction tier. I think it's great. I loved Bettany Hughes' writing style. I actually read this entirely physically, which, for me to read a nonfiction book not on audio is a miracle. And I was just so compelled by Bettany Hughes. To be fair, we also read like basically 1 to 2 chapters a day, a week. I think it was a week. Yeah. Either way, we basically split it up over a period of time, a longer period of time, so that we can really ruminate and discuss each section in a meaningful way. And I think that really helped, actually. All right, and then I got back to DCC, and I read the 4th Dungeon Crawler Curl book, The Butcher's Masquerade. And at this point, this is where I started to feel a little bit fatigued with Dungeon Crawler Curl. Butcher's Masquerade is a huge book. And while I was like, okay, this is really, really long, by the end of it, I was like, okay, I get it. This needed to be this length. This was good. I really, really loved it. I can't really say much about it without spoiling anything, so I will just put it in the new favorite. Yeah, I would put it here. Butcher's Masquerade. It's in the glad I read it tier. Yeah. It's really good. Well worth the page count. Yeah. And I continue to love Carl and Donut and their perspectives. So, anyways, had to get back to Ursula K. Le Guin, and I finished out the Earthsea saga with The Other Wind, and it was so bittersweet and melancholy and wonderful and beautiful and heartbreaking and emotional and all of the things, solely because I was finishing this series out. And it's The Other Wind. It's Earthsea. I will say that I think it's my least favorite of the Earthsea books, but it's still a new favorite. Will I put it? Yeah, I'll put it at the end there. So, all right. And then I finished out, well, I read the third Dogs of War. No, this is different. This is not in order. No, this is not in order. Just kidding. When did I read this? Son of a bitch. No, I just realized some of these were out of order. Oh, God bless it. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, you son of a bitch. Oh, this makes me so sad. All right. Oh, fuck. All right, well, Butcher's Masquerade. Fuck! Butcher's Masquerade is actually the fifth one. Whoopsie daisy. Jesus Christ. I'm losing it. All right, so after Great Big Beautiful Life, oh, for Christ's sake, I'm genuinely, honest to God, losing it. And I think I'm missing a book on here. No, son of a bitch. I put these in order. I numbered them, for God's sakes. Whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Whatever. So, Butcher's Masquerade. Yeah, I'm going to move this down. I'm going to move Butcher's Masquerade down. Because I think this one is the one. This is the one where it started to, like, literally fatigue me. Where it just felt way too long. And I was just ready for it to be over with. The one that I think earned its page count is Gate of the Feral Gods. That's the one where I think it earned its page count. Even though it was starting to get a little bit tiring. Okay, there we go. I don't know. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And then I read Dogs of War. I'm losing it. I swear to God, I'm losing it. Okay, anyways, whatever. Now that these are not in order of when I actually read them, because apparently this filing system sucks. Whatever, it's fine. I read Dogs of War, which is the first book in the, you guessed it, Dogs of War series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Another sci-fi book. And I freaking loved it. Well, I should say, I love Rex. So yeah, I love Rex. I'll just put it like that. I think it's definitely hot take. I'm actually gonna put it in the new glad I read it tier, right under Dispossessed, because I love Rex. Like, it's a very emotional book. Like, it was surprisingly touching. And you're mostly in Rex's perspective, and he is a bioform dog, and dogs are great. And when they're involved in war, it's very sad. All right, and then I already did Gate of the Feral Gods. I think I already did Transmigration of Bodies. That's what I next read. And then oh God, I can't believe I'm an idiot. I finally found my romance that I was loving. I have an entire video about the Rebel Blue Ranch series, discussing it with Taylor, and I'm obsessed. Cowboy romance? Who? Me? A fan? Cool. Awesome. Sweet. Done and dusted, though. Freaking loved it. All right. Let's do this. Let's see. I am going to put it... I'll actually put it at the end, because I think it's my least favorite of the Rebel Blue Range series. And I read Ogres, which I already tier ranked. And then I read through the rest of the Rebel Blue Range series, which even these are not in order. For God's sakes. Tier maker, get your shit together. Whatever, it's fine. The second book is Swift and Saddled. And this is actually my favorite of the Rebel Blue Range series. So much so that I am putting it in the new part of my personality tier. Hot take. I know. I'm sorry, Percival Everett fans and Dungeon Crawler fans, but I love the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and it's so good. All right, and then Lost and Lassoed, I think, is my second favorite of the series. So I would put it here. And then Wild and Wrangled, it's all right. I would actually put it above, just slightly above. Yeah, I'd put it slightly above Done and Dusted, because Wild and Wrangled involves letters, and I'm a sucker for letters in romance, apparently. This is what I'm finding out about myself. Thank you, Jane Austen. You've trained me well. All right, and then I needed to come down off of my high from Lila Sage and reread one of my favorite romances, which is Happy Place. And it is continuing to be one of my favorite books of all time. I love Happy Place. Again, not tier ranking the reread section. It's just in order of when I reread them. And I'm actually just double checking to make sure I actually did reread it in that order. I did not, son of a bitch. God damn, hot diggity doggy. All right, so I actually reread Happy Place first, and then I reread Funny Story. Jesus Christ, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And also, oh, for God's sakes, after I read The River Has Roots and before I finished Yiddish Folktales, I reread The Vanished Birds. And that was... So I reread This Is How You Lose the Time War, then The Vanished Birds, then Happy Place, then Funny Story. Jesus Christ, Mary and Joseph. We're fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to freak out. It's fine. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine. Anyways, let's go back to Tchaikovsky and end it out on a high note, okay? I read the second and the newest book in the Dogs of War series, Bearhead as the second book, and Bee Speaker as the third book. Bearhead, in the same vein as The Word for World is Forest, is an incredibly angry book. And it is unfortunately incredibly relevant to today because there is a character in the book that is incredibly inspired by a current politician. The character's name in the book is Thompson, and I will just say the first letter is who it's related to. And it's that character, even though we do not get a perspective from him, we see his character from everyone else's perspective and the repercussions of his actions and his ego and his desires. And it's infuriating. On that alone is incredibly triggering. On top of that, there's a character in here named Springer. And her perspective, especially having to interact with Thompson and his people, the people around Thompson, is in the same way that reading Davidson's character in The Word for World is Forest was incredibly difficult, to the point that I didn't think I would be able to finish this book or even read it because of the perspective. It was really fucking hard. And I pushed through because I trust Tchaikovsky as a writer. The way that he wrote Thompson's character to be purposefully enraging and disgusting and awful and horrible, and the scenes in which Springer has to deal with Thompson and the people around Thompson, which, by the way, Springer is a woman. I have never had a panic attack while reading until I read this book. And I had multiple panic attacks while reading this book, specifically reading Thompson's character and reading from Springer's perspective. because of the things that Thompson was doing and the things that she was going through. It was enraging, infuriating, triggering, all purposely so. Nothing was gratuitous. And the way that Tchaikovsky wrote it, that he was, unfortunately, I don't think his intention was like, yeah, I want to have people have panic attacks. He wants people to be angry. I did send him an email after finishing Bearhead and be like, hey, like, this book made me so mad. Thank you for this. Essentially, to boil it down, I don't think he wants people to have panic attacks, but he wants people to be angry about Thompson, about what's going on in the book, and just the intentionality of it and the execution of it was too good. Too good. And for that reason, it is a new favorite. Because of the reaction it elicited in me. It is telling that 2, and you could argue 3, of my top books of this year so far are so incredibly angry. And actually, Buffalo Hunter, there is an anger, a obvious anger in this book. The visceral reaction that I had to The Word for World is Forest and Bearhead, because of the perspectives. I don't think that it is surprising, given the current climate, at least in the US, and probably, let's be honest, globally as well, that the righteously and justifiably angry books are the ones that connected with me so deeply. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I want to do some sort of, I feel like I need to talk about these books more, even more in depth, to just, not just exercise the demons, but like get the rage out of me, because they are enraging books in a good way. And yeah, they're definitely my top. They're my top books of the year so far. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. And then I finished out the Dogs of War series. There obviously were books in between, because the tier maker decided to have a fit. And Beast Speaker was a book that I apparently no one anticipated. And in the same way that this is also another book that came at the oddly wrong but right time. I was reading this book during the strikes on Iran, and there were things going on in this book that were eerily similar to the events that were happening in the real world globally. And this takes place multiple years after Bearhead. And that's the thing about the Dogs of War series, is they technically can be read on their own, but I think if you read them in order, you get the world building and the expansion of the world, and you get the context of the world over time. And yeah, this is another borderline angry book. This one, where Dogs of War is really about consciousness and an individuality, Bearhead is about control and autonomy. And Beast Speaker, I would argue, is about, I would say it is about it. I just have to talk about specifically Bearhead and Beastspeaker, because the way that Tchaikovsky explores in Bearhead femininity, womanhood, just the female as a whole, and womanhood, as at least from a biological perspective. Beastspeaker, he explores gender identity and masculinity versus femininity in such a compelling way. I did not expect to cry. But yeah, I'm gonna have to break my own rule, and just say, but if I break my rule for this, I'm gonna have to break my rule for Earthsea. Screw it. Okay, I'm gonna break my rule. Beastspeaker is one of my favorite books of the year. I'm gonna have to put it there, and just because I'm breaking the rule for Dogs of War, I'm gonna break the rule for Earthsea, and I'm putting them as part of my personality, because I do think about Tehanu on a daily basis as well. And you know what? I'm gonna break my own rules, even though Tales from Earthsea is objectively my favorite of the Earthsea. Tehanu is the best of Earthsea, and yeah, that's where we're at. Tear maker freak out and tears aside, this is my first half of the year. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I'm gonna do a tier ranking for the rest of the year. It's taken me over actually 2 months, almost 3 months to make this one. I don't have the drive or the desire to do this, to be honest. But yeah, so this is it. That's it. Cool. Like and subscribe, or whatever the people say. Like and subscribe. Is that it? Yeah. Hit that bell notification. Whatever. Anyways, bye.